Please, everyone take a seat, blood brethren.
Attention. This is Sheriff Daniel Stone.
Once again, it happened in Buffalo. The police and firefighters from Johnson County intervened just in time before...
They're trying to unravel a UFO mystery in Cheyenne tonight.
Yeah, that's where those damn lunatics are.
Children of my Orohoi, we have waited for so many years. These revelations have been delivered for millennia to those who...
Cults exist all over the world, each with its own unique ideologies and beliefs. Often when we hear about cults, we encounter some of the most disturbing but interesting aspects of humanity. Whether it involves vampires, UFOs, or other bizarre phenomenon, there is always someone manipulative enough to influence the masses, ranging from a few individuals to thousands. In today's analog horror series, we'll delve into this exact type of twisted narrative. The series we'll be exploring today is Orohoi, created by Anomaly here on YouTube. Now, I'll be breaking the series into 3 parts, as each season is about approximately 45 minutes long, and I'll be releasing them one after another. So without further ado, let's uncover the sinister world of Orohoi. In March of 1997, 4 hotels all located within the city of Chicago would have to temporarily close their swimming pools for 3 weeks due to a strange substance that was found in their pools. This would draw significant attention due to the simultaneous occurrence of these events and the similarity of the substance found floating within these pools. The substance was viscous and yellow in nature. It also appeared spherical in shape and ranged in different sizes, from anywhere to the size of a golf ball to the size of a human head. The strange substance would be disposed of in garbage containers, with some of it being returned to the sewer system. This would all lead to October of the same year, where the Department of Defense would be alerted by the City of Chicago Sewer Service about suspected trafficking-related activity in some tunnels for the past 3 years. Additionally, residential levels started to show some unusually high numbers, indicating a possible blockage in Zone 71 of the underground system, where materials were previously processed following the sanitary guidelines of the 1960s. After the alert, the Department of Defense would form an extraordinary committee. The committee would send a specialized military team to investigate the deepest sewers in Chicago, as the main dangers at that time was the potential spread of a disease that could infect some rivers. It would be on midnight of October 1997, the first military team would arrive at the 4th underground floor of the sewer system, and inside one of the containment pools, they would find a substance similar to the substance found in the hotel swimming pools. They would begin to search the wells of the 4th underground floor. With them, they brought cameras, weapons, and explosives. This was all to record the entities causing possible water contamination. The military team would find 15 well entrances that led to sites ranging in depths from 65 to about 98 feet underground, or for non-Americans, that would be about 20 meters to 30 meters. Within the wells that reached 98 feet, they would find pulsating larvae and organ tissues all covered with mucus, but that wouldn't be the only thing they would find inside the wells. The military team would find gigantic eggs that seem prehistoric in nature, being incapable for birds or other animals to produce in this day and age. The team would send an extensive probe attached with cameras into the underground pipes. The results from this would be nothing less than astonishing. Inside of these pipes, they would find abnormally large, mutated insects forming nests. They seemed to be feeding off of moisture, waste, and other ways that were apparently impossible to be determined. Due to the high biological risk, an emergency plan for security in war catastrophes was initiated. Protocols for the use of scientific weaponry were implemented in order to prevent any creatures from spreading to the surface. On some occurrences, the military team would come head to head with these insects, which they would describe as overly developed moths. It was unknown what caused these creatures to grow to such sizes, but some theorize this could have been caused by unreported nuclear disasters that modified their phenotypic structure. Phenotypic structures refers to the visible traits and characteristics of an organism, like the shape, color, and environment it lives in. There's a little bit more to it, but that's the very basic way of describing it. A series of explosives were placed in the tunnels of the former Area 71, safeguarding against any risk of collapse near the surface. This was done through controlled detonations using the compound 3-hexalogenol 6-carboxylurium. specially created for biological emergencies. It effectively broke down organic materials and effectively restricted explosive waves that could destabilize stone, concrete, and metal. The main entrance to the 4th underground floor was completely collapsed, and all its entrances were sealed in record time, hoping that all creatures within 20 to 30 meters would all be torn apart and have no chance to spread. On the other hand, the drain pipes leading to Lake Michigan were intervened and sealed. The creature that the 3 teenagers photographed was not found, and it's presumed that it escaped with the noise of explosions. An alert is being maintained. This all leads us to the following image of what looks to be a figure of a man walking through a tunnel in Zone 71, which was captured by a security camera at one of the exits to the 5th underground floor. The man was walking slowly in the opposite directions of the explosions. Now, due to this, the military team would review each member, which would only reveal that everyone came back unharmed. In fact, no member even reported passing through that area during the investigation. We are then taken to Dr. Ronald, who was examining a larva similar to the ones found in the sewer systems. This photograph was originally taken on December 11th of 1997. Something is clear. This entity is not currently alive. We can determine this because when dissected and subjected to electricity through its organic structure, it shows no sign of reflex response. At least all living beings on this planet exhibit that kind of reaction. I'm not going to delve into extraterrestrial discussion. There are still many things that need to be ruled out. This is the first thing I can confirm. We can say, however, that this appears to be a cocoon that hatched not many days ago into a creature at least 2 meters long, or even larger. This biological vessel is highly malleable and expandable. It's strange how there are numerous very small spines inside it. In our experience as biologists, we don't understand these structures that should be on the outside as a means of defense. It's as if this cocoon is trying to keep whatever is growing inside firmly in place. 2 weeks later, on the 26th of December, 1997, this photograph would be taken of the same cocoon, in which it appeared to melt away. Only a few weeks after the initial examination of the material, we noticed that the cocoon began to slowly melt imperceptibly until one day it started to boil and transform into a very hot yellowish mass that consumed itself. The reasoning behind this strange event would not be determined, though they did theorize that it could have been because of extreme dryness or surface light possibly triggered some sort of reaction. It was also noted that the heat from the cocoon did not go on to affect the surface of the metal table or any equipment in the room. We are then given the following recording, which is from a Spanish radio station on the morning of September 9th, 2003.
Último minuto. Ricardo Castellón y Portonero, médico cirujano de 42 años, quien ha estado en el ojo del huracán desde agosto, ha sido finalmente detenido por la policía de Andalucía hoy 19 de septiembre. Los cargos que pesan sobre este médico son de suma gravedad. Se le imputa negligencia médica, faltas graves gravísimas al Código Sanitario, posesión de arsenal de guerra y la participación directa en 8 procedimientos quirúrgicos indebidos. Las primeras acusaciones sacudieron a la comunidad médica dejando a todos perplejos y preocupados por la seguridad de los pacientes en manos de profesionales de la salud. El arresto de Castellón y Portonero ha generado un intenso debate acerca de la práctica en clínicas particulares.
Ricardo Portonero is described as an average doctor, a 42-year-old surgeon who was arrested by police on September 19th of 2003. The reasoning behind his arrest is extremely disturbing. He was charged with a multitude of things, such as medical negligence, violations of the health code, possession of a war arsenal, and involvement with 8 improper surgical procedures. The word of Ricardo's arrest and charges spread quickly around the medical community, surprising everyone with the severity of his actions. Ricardo's clinic, which was located in the center of the city, specialized in cosmetic operations, but that wasn't the only procedures they would perform. They would also perform procedures that apparently cured terminal illnesses, congenital deformities, blindness, hypertension, and musculoskeletal injuries. You see, the procedures that he would perform seemed pretty much impossible outside of a hospital, and the first complaints of his medical irresponsibilities would come to light the next year from one of his clients that received a botched Botox procedure. This would lead to multiple investigations that would uncover several more disturbing things connected to his medical practices. We are then given the following testimonies from 2 females that received medical attention from Mr. Ricardo.
Yo no sé lo que me hizo ese hombre. A mí el doctor de toda la vida me dijo que tenía un tumor en la cabeza. Algo imposible de operar y de tratar. Las esperanzas eran mínimas. Así que mi Paquita, mi sobrina, me llevó a este doctor que atendía en el centro de Sevilla. Él me prometió curarme. Yo al comienzo no le creí nada, pero era eso o simplemente despedirme de la vida. A las semanas después de la operación, el doctor Ricardo me dijo que estaba en perfecto estado, que el tumor se había ido. Incluso me mostró unas radiografías. Ahí sí que le creí. El problema fue que, 6 meses después, comencé a perder la sensibilidad en mis pies. Luego las piernas, hasta que no pude caminar más. Al año no podía mover mi cuerpo desde el cuello hacia abajo. Cuando decidí volver a los doctores del hospital, estaban tremendamente sorprendidos porque el tumor efectivamente había desaparecido, pero encontraron algo inexplicable en mi cuello, junto a mi médula espinal. Era un parásito, no recuerdo el nombre, es algo complicado. Me dijeron que eso se estaba alimentando de mi médula y mi columna por su cuerpo. Y esa cosa era la que había eliminado mi tumor, comiéndoselo y creciendo gracias a eso. Intentaron preparar una cirugía de emergencia cuando se enteraron, pero era demasiado arriesgado. En este momento estamos esperando a un médico alemán que puede abordar este caso en un par de meses más. Estuve muy mal durante unas 2 o 3 semanas. Mi estómago me dolía mucho, aunque siempre he tenido problemas digestivos desde pequeña. Una amiga me recomendó a este tipo, porque le había realizado un procedimiento estético muy bueno y como él es médico, podría ayudarme a un buen precio. Al examinarme y hacerme algunas pruebas, fue tajante en decirme que tenía una severa disfunción a nivel del intestino delgado. La mucosa interna estaba siendo poco efectiva para eliminar ciertos componentes de mi alimentación, así que me recomendó una intervención altamente invasiva con el fin de implantarme unos gusanos, de las que aseguraba regenerarían parte de mis intestinos. Ahí comenzó mi infierno. Al primer mes iba todo perfecto, pero noté que no estaba ganando peso a pesar de comer más de lo habitual. El doctor Ricardo me había dicho que eso era normal, que no me preocupara. Ya al segundo mes comencé a desmayarme en todos lados y a vomitar mucho, estaba casi anémica. Sentí un bulto entre el abdomen y el cuello muy ligero, que con los días empezó a crecer, hasta que ya no resistí más. Me dieron horribles punzadas en el pecho y mi condición de salud era horrible. Me llevaron de urgencia al hospital, donde me realizaron un escaneo con rayos X y encontraron esta asquerosidad dentro de mí. Tuvieron que realizarme una cirugía de urgencia. Me encontraron una enorme larva de casi 15 centímetros de largo rodeando mi corazón y fusionándose con parte de mi pulmón derecho. Tardé 1 año en lograr la primera etapa de mi rehabilitación. Ese médico está loco.
Ricardo would implant both of these women with some sort of parasite that seemed to be trying to take control of their bodies. Not only did it seem like they were trying to take control of their bodies, it also seemed like they were feeding off of their bodies in some sort of way. These testimonies would lead to Ricardo's clinic being raided on the same day as his arrest, on September 19, 2003. He, alongside his secretary and some nurses, would be arrested for complicity in medical crimes. The authorities would begin their investigation inside the clinic. This investigation would lead to some of the most utterly bizarre findings. Inside, they would find glass jars with some sort of substance inside of it. In addition to that, they would find what seems to be decomposing crab-like crustacean with extra long, overly developed appendages, similar to what was found in the sewer tunnels. In other rooms of the clinic, they would find large glass jars with huge larvae inside, and overly developed moths. These jars would weigh over 40 to 60 pounds, and the creatures inside would respond to certain stimulation like light and noise. And when these creatures were removed from the clinic, they would begin screeching. As part of the investigation, the authorities confiscated all documents found inside of the clinic. And inside of some doctors' notebooks, they would find some odd drawings that resembled some schematics for transformations of humans into insects. And if that wasn't odd enough, during the processing photos of Ricardo, they would find a huge tattoo of a moth on his back. This would all lead us to the interrogation of Ricardo. The interrogation was performed on September 22nd of 2003. This interrogation would uncover some truly disturbing things. Your name is Ricardo Antonio Castellon Ordinero, correct? That's correct. Your profession is medicine. Can you tell me what year you obtained your license? In 1991. Right, have you ever received any sanctions from the Professional Regulation Institution? No, never. My record is clean. Are you aware of the charges against you? Of course. I don't think we need the testimonies of the patients accusing you. You should remember each of these cases quite well. So I prefer we get straight to the point. Go ahead. I'll answer your questions. Where did you obtain those giant larvae, the ones you kept so well in enormous jars in your clinic's basement? Look, I'll be honest. You'll decide whether to believe me or not. I bred them myself. Ricardo, it's not about whether I believe you or not. I need you to be honest and explain everything in detail. The charges and evidence against you won't save you from prison. I'll reiterate, I bred them myself. If you want, I can tell you how. Very well. Go ahead, tell me everything. I don't know if you're familiar with the Medical Brotherhood in Malga. It doesn't really matter. That brotherhood was unique. It had professors with an unquestionable track record, as well as first-year students. I joined during my internship, selected by a professor due to my high grades and particular interest in the area of infectious diseases. Once I began my activities in this group, one of the most astonishing medical techniques was revealed to us. Things I will never tell, or the consequences could be terrible. The point is, this true revolution needed devoted followers, people who could give their lives for the cause. They saw incredible potential in me. I was promoted to the highest ranks within months. They said so many times that my body was the ideal vessel to hold the truth. Perhaps your mind is too narrow to understand what we call the truth. And that's how it happened. I gave my body to the cause. And that's how I became the first child of Morohoi. I'm sorry, what was that last thing you said? Morohoi? Please continue. The one and holy brought me into the world, through me, the truth. And that truth would cure all the world's ills. This world is infested by those forces that corrupt the fabric of reality and distance us from the great other. That's how I received the greatest of revelations. And Morohoi used my body to bring forth life. Life for me, for you, and the whole world. I've waited so many years I'm not sure I understand you very well. There's a way, a unique way, that will bring us salvation. If we all become that source of universal perfection, we can be one with the great other. Very well, this will be recorded in your statement. Now, I need to know, why did you dedicate yourself to implanting these larvae since 1997? Isn't it obvious? They all had to adopt their true form. I was helping them. This isn't the way we're supposed to live. This body decays, but those of Morohoi transcend the universe. It's the true form. They just had to allow their children to take their own bodies. After this interview, it then transitions to a scene in a local grocery store where we are taken into the perspective of a common customer named Mr. Donovan, who was essentially narrating over the video for about the next 20 minutes. Now, I'm not going to be playing the full clip, only the end part of it, but I would really recommend you watch this part of the original video, which is linked in the description with the timestamp needed. I will briefly explain what happened. As mentioned earlier, Mr. Donovan comes to the store quite often, and it's owned by the Lee family. One of the employees who works there is a young man named Ryan, who is the son of the boss named Dunn Wasser. On one of Mr. Donovan's visits to the store, Ryan seems extremely sick. Mr. Donovan offers to call an ambulance for the young man, but Ryan declines, saying that it's only allergies. Come to find out a day later, the allergies he said he was having was actually anaphylactic shock, which is a severe life-threatening form of your body reacting to allergies. That can happen within seconds to minutes, meaning that he was close to dying. In addition to that, Mr. Donovan noticed a small lump sticking underneath Ryan's t-shirt. When Mr. Donovan questions him about it, Ryan kind of brushes it off. 3 days later, the shop would be closed down for a couple of days due to the death of Don Wasser's wife, and one night, Mr. Donovan would get a knock on his door from his neighbor named Miss Clark, telling him to come down to the grocery store as there was something going on that he wouldn't believe unless he saw it with his own eyes. The place was surrounded with police, and the kid seemed to be in trouble. Mr. Donovan would grab a golf club as a weapon, and shortly after would arrive at the store.
The emergency flashing lights of police cars had filled the next block with red and blue hues, and a few officers were guarding the area behind the police tapes surrounding Mr. Lee's store. A few neighbors had gathered behind the tape, peeking at the massive security display. Before I could ask any questions, 2 more police officers passed by me, running towards the store entrance with their service weapons ready to fire at any moment. People startled as the authorities called for everyone to leave the area through a megaphone on one of the cars. The blare of sirens grew louder as more rescue vehicles, ambulances, and even 2 fire companies arrived. "Back! Back! Denver police! Hands up!" A loud crash echoed from the store entrance. The glass from the door shattered onto the asphalt, and one of the officers warned again. "Hands up! Don't take another step. Do you understand?" The atmosphere turned tense all of a sudden. Suddenly, everyone who had been observing the strange scene moved several meters away from the scene. Many hurried back to their homes, terror outweighing curiosity. "Damn, it's that idiot Don Wasser," I muttered to myself, still gripping the golf club tightly. "Don't make any other move. Otherwise, we'll be forced to restrain you by force," the police officer continued. Describing what happened next is difficult for me because, honestly, I don't know if what I saw was real. No one would believe it, even in my position. Yes, it was Don Wasser, I was sure of it. But not about what he was doing there, half naked, facing about 7 police officers, pointing guns and shotguns at him. The man was only wearing a partially buttoned white shirt, with his arms and face covered in blood, with broken glass fragments still embedded in his greasy, chubby face. A yellowish drool oozed profusely from his mouth, dripping from his chin to his chest. His belly and all the obscene flesh jiggled with every step he attempted to take. He was out of his mind, with bloodshot, bulging eyes. Behind him, inside the store, I could make out the body of an emaciated young man seated in front of the cash register, rigid, with his right eye socket shattered and hollowed out from his nose to his forehead. "I warn you, one more step and we'll be forced." And it happened. Whatever was about to happen happened just as I had seen it. Don Wasser's head exploded so suddenly that even the officer with the megaphone let out a horrified groan that everyone heard over the speaker. The man collapsed rigidly to the ground, drenched in a bloody pulp that spread into a pool of dark pus. And before anyone could even make a move to approach, brown wings, as large as his own body, sprouted out suddenly and lifted the once Don Wasser's mass of fat into the air.
Don Wasser ended up killing his son and presumably his wife, and during the encounter with the police, he ended up dying, but at this point, I believe he was already dead, as the larva that was inside of him completely took control over his body. After being shot, the moth that was inside of him would burst out of his body and would fly away. During Christmas season in Latin America near the mountain range, instead of celebrating the New Year's and Christmas every year around December and early January, these strange insect-like creatures come to lay their eggs on the rooftop of several villages. The villagers call these strange creatures dongas. They can have many different forms, but many of them look like some sort of humanoids and insect-like creatures. They all vary in size, but they range from being less than a meter tall, about the size of a child, to over 2 meters in height, about the size of an extremely tall adult male. On Christmas Eve, all the adults lock their children inside their homes and go out to capture and kill the creatures. These creatures are reported to be non-hostile. In fact, the images that we are seeing were actually taken by the locals, but regardless, these locals would go after these creatures to stop them from being able to reproduce within the village.
We've been living with these critters our whole lives. You go to the caves up in the mountains, and you always run into them. These bugs are harmless, buddy. Down there, they just beat them with sticks and don't understand the importance of these beautiful creatures we have in the mountains. We hope one day to become like them and be one with nature. We hope the chrysalis takes all of us, and that way we'll live in nature as it has always been. We need perfect creatures to live. They provide us with food, security, everything that we are unable to produce. Someday, this mountain will erupt, and the world will see what we're made of. We'll implant ourselves all over the land and return to our original form. That's how it will be, and that's how we'll strive to bring it about in the best way possible, all in due time.
In 2009, around late December, a town named Teleshuna would have to deal with the yearly occurrence of larvae being laid on the rooftop, but something odd would happen this time around. Due to the extreme heat, the eggs and larvae left on the rooftops would begin to grow rapidly to sizes unseen before, doing so in less than a week. These larvae were everywhere, completely infesting the town. They could be found hanging off of trees, homes, and some of these cocoons were so massive that they completely collapsed homes. The locals tried to get rid of these things, but they were far too late. Eventually, families would have to completely abandon the town due to the use of large amounts of pesticides. As the years went on, government agencies, environmental organizations, scientists, high-mountain military specialists, and locals would plan exploratory trips to the mountain's depths. Due to the public's low interest with the case and lack of funding, these expedition trips would last for months. When they would arrive, they would find multiple entrances to the caves. Within these entrances, they would find large passageways. Digging deeper into the cave, they would find multiple never-recorded species of animals living in different biomes of the cave. In addition to that, they would also find something very familiar. Cocoons that were just as large as the ones that wiped out the town were found within this cave. Now, as mentioned earlier, there was a severe lack of funding for this expedition, which in turn wouldn't allow these findings to be studied. After this expedition would end, there would be no more attempts, at least from official organizations, to explore the depths of the mountain ranges. Now, one thing I would like to harken back to is the initial dialogue we received from what seems to be old locals from a town nearby. Within both of the excerpts, they carry the same themes. They both praise the creatures, and oddly enough, both hint at becoming one with these creatures and implanting themselves into others. And within one of the excerpts, they quite literally reference chrysalis, which is commonly used to describe butterflies or moths within their final transformation stage from a cocoon to an adult. If it isn't obvious enough by now, these people plan to physically merge with these creatures, therefore becoming one with nature itself, and in their eyes, becoming the ultimate life form, their true form, the great other. This would also fully connect back to the interrogation with Ricardo, where he talks about the reasoning behind implanting people with the larvae. They all had to adopt their true form. I was helping them. This isn't the way we're supposed to live. This body decays, but those of Morohoi transcend the universe. It's the true form. The end goal of this cult is to transcend humanity into something beyond the universe, a form in which we won't be limited by the bounds of reality, a form in which humanity's suffering and desires can be relieved. This is all very similar to the Buddhism term, nirvana, which refers to a state of peace and happiness, similar to that of heaven.
Attention! Central! This is Sheriff Daniel Starr. I'm reaching out to the 111th Police Precinct in New York City, Queens County. I'm currently on the Cross Island Parkway heading west, alongside Clearview Park Golf Course. Notifying all available patrols to investigate the area. Due to a swarm of insects causing significant traffic congestion. I repeat, it's a swarm causing traffic difficulties and hovering above us. Additionally, I request heightened attention at the call center as there have been reports of what they're calling giant moths. I'm not sure if it's some kind of code word for a terrorist act, a gang activity, or whatever, but I'm urging extreme caution. Protocol 42 should be implemented under official orders to maintain the situation. I repeat, giant moths have been reported. I repeat, these are civilians' words. Keep us informed of the situation.
Shortly after midnight on April 4th of the year 2000, a sheriff named Daniel would respond to multiple reports of traffic congestion due to swarms of violent insects and huge moths. When he and multiple other officers would arrive at the scene, a huge swarm of moths could be seen swarming buildings and swarming the Whitestone Expressway. This swarm of moths would then go on to attack a man, leaving him injured, leading to him having to go to the hospital. A huge moth would be seen roaming around the streets, emitting a buzz sound of 65 decibels. This wouldn't be the only reports of huge moths. Moths measuring up to 15 inches were identified. An even bigger creature would be found 2 nights later in Cortland, New York. These moth swarms and encounters would only grow worse for Queen County over the next week. These swarms were highly aggressive on contact with humans, so authorities would decide to hire pest control and extermination teams, but this wouldn't go as they expected. 3 workers would get attacked by these moths, leading to them being severely injured and hospitalized. At the hospital, the 3 patients' injuries would only grow worse. It would be documented that their skin seemed to have burns that turned their skin into a viscous substance, and within one of the most extreme cases, one of the patient's arm was beginning to grow a vast amount of hair, and the arm would begin to turn into an insect-like appendage, becoming as strong as steel. This would only be the beginning of the terrors to come.
This is a panoramic shot from way back there. Yeah, that's where those damn lunatics are.